Hmm. Faithfully delivering value and exploring great books globally. Oh, hello. This is Sally with Book Insights. All right, today we're diving into Charles Dickens' classic novel, Hard Times. We've all heard how great writers act as the conscience of their era. In any age, boom or bust, writers keep painting its flaws and sins, shining a light on ignored everyday folks. And Charles Dickens, he's one of those greats. Back in the 1850s, Britain was booming with the Industrial Revolution, strong and thriving. By then, Dickens was 20 years in, riding high on fame. Every appearance got roaring cheers from fans. But Dickens stayed sharp-eyed and clear-headed, didn't quit writing. No, he cranked out even more classics. And Hard Times, it's a perfect example of that, published back in 1854. In this boom time, Dickens chose Hard Times as the title. As the title, it bucks the trend, hinting this ain't no golden age. Beneath prosperity is pollution. Small towns, wrecked environments, greedy capitalists, and waves of worker protests. In these tough times, just a handful lived the high life. And while most folks were stuck grinding through struggles, Hard Times was Dickens' 10th book, racking up rave reviews. Bernard Shaw, playwright, activist, 1925 Nobel winner, called this Dickens' finest, a fiery stand against industrial society. But Shaw only got it half right. Yep, in the whole book, Dickens laid bare the dark void in society's soul amid the Industrial Revolution. But louder still, he called for love and mercy. Set in a rising industrial town in Britain called Coketown, yep, coal is king here. Picture it, chimneys everywhere, smoke puffing to the heavens. Our hero, Thomas Gradgrind, got rich selling hardware wholesale. Later an MP, he's a classic. He's an English country gentleman, and he's also the chairman of a model school, showing special concern for minors' education. You could say Gradgrind is an influential figure in Coketown. Right at the start of the novel, Gradgrind declares his life philosophy, saying, "I am a practical man, a man of facts, and a man with plans. I conduct myself based on this principle. 2 plus 2 equals 4, not more. And no matter how you try to convince me, I won't believe it equals more." He also exaggeratedly said, "I often carry a ruler, a scale, and a multiplication table in my pocket, ready to measure any part of human nature and accurately state its weight and quantity." This aligns with his principles. Gradgrind's appearance is also mechanical and rigid. The book writes that every part of Gradgrind's body is square. His forehead is perfectly square, like a wall. His eyes are like 2 holes hidden under the wall. Underneath, there are 2 holes hidden by the wall, containing eyes. His mouth is large, lips thin, and his voice is rigid, similar to the sound from his face and throat. Moreover, his fingers, legs, shoulders, and coat are all perfectly square. His tie is tied so tightly it's strangling his throat. In short, in this world, he only speaks facts, only considers facts, and only believes in facts, and all facts are measurable. Beyond facts, all things temperamental, like emotions, imagination, interests, etc., never enter his mind. As the school chairman, he often goes to the school to inspect and lecture, grabbing teachers and students at any moment to indoctrinate them with his fact philosophy. For example, he admonished a female student named Sissy, telling her that, when introducing herself, she should only use her formal name, not a pet name given by her parents. He asked students to rigidly explain what a horse is based on encyclopedia entries. He insisted that wallpaper with horse prints shouldn't be used because no one has ever seen a horse walking on a wall. It's not factual. He also said that carpets with floral patterns should be banned because, factually, people can't walk on flowers, so they shouldn't walk on printed carpets either. Not just at school, Gradgrind is the same at home. He uses the same philosophy to discipline his 5 children. The children's earliest memory was their father standing at the blackboard, writing dull numbers with chalk. They never learned nursery rhymes, never heard animal fairy tales, never imagined what the moon might be like. They only knew stars and moon were celestial bodies, only knew a cow's physiological structure. At their father's demand, they spent days collecting mineral and biological specimens, learning scientific principles of nature. Clearly, Dickens shaped Gradgrind with exaggeration. In Coketown, everyone knew Gradgrind was practical and rational, and he took pride in this reputation. Under Gradgrind's strict supervision, the model school children only received astronomy, geography, and scientific measurement education. Though they learned Greek and Latin, they treated these languages merely as tools for naming minerals and species, receiving zero exposure to literature or art. The headmaster faithfully executed Gradgrind's orders, stuffing cold facts into children's minds regardless of their preferences. A student named Bitzer was Gradgrind's favorite for memorizing scientific terms and skillfully anticipating the school board's thoughts. Dickens exaggeratedly wrote of Bitzer, he was so pale, even his blood ran white. Next appears Gradgrind's friend Bounderby, a wealthy banker and factory owner. Dickens described his appearance thus: Bounderby, burly figure, booming voice, laugh like a cracked gong, as if roughly hewn from coarse material. As a friend, Bounderby lived Gradgrind's fact philosophy. He saw only factory output. Workers weren't human, just labor. Moreover, Bounderby constantly boasted about his past destitution to highlight his rags to riches struggle. His vanity swelled under others' awed gazes. He'd say, "No one ever helped me, yet I survived." Street urchin, page boy, tramp, laborer, doorman, clerk, manager, vice president, finally becoming Coketown's Bounderby. Oh, this is my life story and rise to success. But actually, Bounderby's personal history was all fabricated. He wasn't an orphan. The truth is, he abandoned his own mother, giving her just £30 a year, while forbidding her visits to Coketown, hiring an expensive housekeeper instead. He told everyone this housekeeper came from nobility, proving that, despite his low birth, he could employ such high-class help, truly life's winner. His claim, "I rose from humanity's dregs," was false modesty. It actually revealed he's always floated in those dregs. Gradgrind controlled education, Bounderby the economy. Under their influence, Coketown workers were lifeless, even off-duty. They moped at home, uninterested in fun. Plus, severe air pollution blanketed the town in haze, Dickens' vision of prosperity's dark side. Yet Gradgrind still complained about town morals, especially Sissy, a student who saw the world with wonder, while Gradgrind saw Sissy as hopelessly stubborn. Worse, Sissy's father was a circus clown, a profession Gradgrind despised. He deemed such performances frivolous. Only lowlifes would perform or watch them. So when he caught his kids, Tom and Louisa, sneaking to a show, he berated them harshly. Gradgrind saw the circus as a menace and Sissy as dangerous, fearing she'd corrupt students. He went to expel Sissy. Coincidentally, her aging father had botched performances and abandoned her. Learning this, Gradgrind took Sissy home to tend his sickly wife. He believed women should do practical work, no schooling or acrobatics, lest they get dangerous ideas. At home, Gradgrind lectured Sissy on arithmetic and political economy, but she couldn't absorb it. Gradgrind once tested him, asking, "What's the most fundamental principle of political economy?" Sissy answered, "Do not do to others what you do not want done to yourself." In school, the teacher once explained statistics, saying, if 100,000 people have an accident at sea and 500 die, what's the death ratio? Sissy couldn't answer. She only knew those 500 lives were gone, and their relatives must be suffering terribly. It's clear that Sissy and Gradgrind are from two different worlds. In Sissy's view, living ethics and personal emotions matter way more than Gradgrind's facts and data. Luckily, Sissy isn't alone. Gradgrind's daughter, Louisa, also can't agree with him. Under Gradgrind's education, Louisa was disappointed in her father. She said, "Other kids sing and dance, but I can't even sing to my dear brother because father gets mad. He forbids me from daydreaming." But the more father did that, the more curious I got about everything. And so in Gradgrind's house, Sissy and Louisa gradually came together. But Louisa grew up, and Gradgrind decided to arrange her marriage to Bounderby. Bounderby was a full 30 years older than Louisa. But Gradgrind said, "Bounderby proposing to Louisa isn't from fancy or love. It's based on facts. Men marry when grown, women marry when grown. If wealth and status match, it's fine, and older husband marriages are common. Statistically, such marriages aren't rare worldwide." Louisa agreed, but her reason was heartbreaking. She said, "In my heart, nothing innocent ever took root. I've never had a child's heart. I've never dreamed a child's dream. From childhood till now, Father, you've been so thoughtful that I never had a child's faith or fears." By saying this, Louisa was declaring her complete resignation to fate. Marry whom or not marry whom? Even if Father gave her the choice, she indicated she'd give it up. After announcing this, Louisa knew she was on a different path from Sissy, and in Sissy's eyes, she'd become cold and arrogant. But after marriage, Louisa and Bounderby couldn't spark any love. She'd never tasted love. As she aged, the loneliness inside her began to stir uneasily. Then a man named James Harthouse seized the opportunity. Harthouse was a fashionable gentleman, handsome and witty. He swaggered into Bounderby's house, charming Louisa with silver-tongued flattery. She unwittingly fell for him, even naively thinking she should fight for happiness. Finally, one day, while Mr. Bounderby was away, Harthouse rushed to declare love to Louisa and proposed eloping together. In panic, Louisa secretly fled home to her father Gradgrind, pouring out all her turmoil. She told her father, "Harthouse is waiting. I only know whether I've fallen or not." "I only know your fact philosophy can't save me now. Look what you've brought me to." Seeing his terrified daughter, Gradgrind was utterly shocked. He'd believed arranging a status-appropriate marriage was perfectly reasonable. Yet, this loveless union pushed Louisa toward ruin. He never imagined causing such despair. Watching his weeping daughter pour out her pain, his whole world crumbled. In shock, Gradgrind clung to the nearly fainted Louisa, first showing genuine human emotion. Louisa's rebellion mocked Gradgrind, as did his son Tom, raised identically, yet rebellious. When Louisa married Bounderby, Tom joined his bank but squandered money recklessly. Deep in debt, Louisa counseled him repeatedly, but Tom persisted in bad habits. Finally, Tom stole from the bank, framing Stephen, a fired worker, by planting evidence. Thus, Stephen became the prime suspect, leaving both siblings in life's ruin. After Louisa visited her father, Sissy resolved to help her. Sissy knew Louisa's marriage was hollow, but eloping with Harthouse would destroy her reputation forever. So Sissy rushed to Harthouse's place, confronted him face to face to scold his actions, and demanded he leave forever. Humbled, defeated, got mocked by a poor servant girl, felt like a laughingstock, and slunk away. After talking with Louisa, Gradgrind started reflecting, realizing he'd trusted reason too much. But in truth, he'd ignored more precious things. He said, "Some folks claim wisdom's in reason, but also in emotion. I never bought that, but now my view's changed. I always thought reason was enough. Seems I might have ignored that other wisdom, maybe the most needed thing in human nature." But Bounderby couldn't change his cold, factual ways. That philosophy was deep in his bones. He lived it constantly. Gradgrind told Bounderby about Louisa sincerely. "As a father, I neglected my daughter's feelings. There are issues between Louisa and you," but Bounderby arrogantly shot back, "I know the problem. Louisa doesn't get it. What an honor it is to marry someone like me." So the arrogant Bounderby just divorced Louisa and went back to bachelor life. At the same time, he offered rewards to catch Stephen, the theft suspect. Actually, Stephen was job hunting after being fired, but before the warrant got urgent, he headed back to Coketown to clear his name. only to fall into a mine shaft. After rescue, he was dying but didn't rush to expose Tom. He acted with dignity. To Gradgrind, who came on hearing the news, he said, "Ask your son. I won't accuse anyone before dying. Just do one thing. Help restore my name." By then, Gradgrind had left his cold, unfeeling state behind, a huge inner shift. Though Stephen didn't say the truth, from his solemn, desolate look, Gradgrind grasped it. So after Stephen died, Gradgrind faithfully honored his wish, breaking with the capitalist circle for it. As for his unfilial son, Tom, Gradgrind quietly had the circus boss send him to America, cutting ties for good. Gradgrind found his way back. Louisa remarried and lived a stable life. Oh, as for Bounderby, his end was full of irony and drama. While investigating the bank thief, Bounderby's housekeeper caught a mysterious old woman lurking suspiciously nearby. Bounderby was stunned to see it was none other than his abandoned mother. This old mother, longing for her son, couldn't resist coming secretly to watch from afar, hoping to see him. So everyone knew Bounderby had built his reputation on lies. Bounderby's carefully crafted myth of being a life winner was utterly shattered. 5 years later, this hypocritical and arrogant industrialist and coal magnate suddenly had a stroke and died on Coketown streets. The story of hard times concludes. This novel has Dickens' typical style, using dramatic plots to convey moral intentions. The novel's protagonist, Gradgrind, is a classic figure of the rising British bourgeoisie, a believer in the fact philosophy, which alludes to utilitarianism, political economy, prevalent in Britain then. This doctrine holds that society's purpose is to create the greatest happiness for the greatest number. It promotes individualism, social progress through personal interests, and deems emotions, love, and imagination as secondary or even worthless against numbers and wealth. In the novel, Dickens shows the fact philosophy's impact, environmental destruction. In Dickens' novels, like Oliver Twist and Bleak House, London's fog is a common symbol to depict societal murkiness, lost justice, and human blindness. And in Hard Times, he similarly uses a harsh environment. This background sets the tone. In Coketown, machines and towering chimneys are everywhere. Huge factories roar day and night. Thick smoke like endless snakes billowing from chimneys, staining red brick houses black and turning rivers deep purple. And people live monotonous, dull lives. All this reflects Gradgrind's fact philosophy. Everything's fine if it's useful. Beauty or ugliness, fun or boredom are irrelevant. Coal mines and factories did bring wealth to the town, making industrial capitalists enormously rich, but the people paid a heavy price for it. Wealthy men like Bounderby sat comfortably in scenic villas outside town, while laborers lived in polluted environments. The character suffering most was worker Stephen, fired by Bounderby, framed by Tom, rejected by fellow workers, forced to seek work elsewhere, fell into a mine shaft returning home, and while dying after rescue, spoke these poignant, angry words. "I fell into the mine shaft, that pit where thousands have died, fathers, sons, brothers, men precious to their families, who saved tens of thousands from hunger and cold. Yet, this shaft's filled with gas and poison, killing more brutally than on battlefields. See how we die, so wrongfully. Seems it's always this way, dying like this, day after day." These accusations poured forth Dickens' deep sympathy. In 1854, while writing Hard Times, Dickens visited Preston to observe textile workers' strikes. He witnessed workers' hardships but believed moral improvement, not violent revolution, was the solution. Thus, in Hard Times, Dickens repeatedly used light as a symbol for the importance of human tenderness. He wrote of firelight symbolizing hope. When Gradgrind announced Louisa's engagement to Bounderby, they sat in a room while she gazed distantly at chimneys and smoke. After Gradgrind's monologue met with silence, he asked, "Are you consulting Coketown's factory chimneys?" But Louisa replied, There's nothing but lifeless, monotonous smoke. But come nightfall, firelight appears. Her resentment against suppressed individuality was palpable. After Stephen's mine rescue, Dickens described starlight symbolizing compassion. Though life-weary and fatally injured, Stephen still held hope, telling his companion, "Look up at the starlight." He said, "When I suffered in that pit, starlight shone on me, on my heart." He added, "We need tolerance and forgiveness for others. With stars upon me, I pray before dying, may people understand each other better, grow closer." Dickens believed the most vital light comes from human tenderness, of course. In 1843, Dickens published the world-famous A Christmas Carol, creating the miser Scrooge. Selfish at first, he transformed into generosity through Christmas spirit. Hard Times, published a decade later, echoes this. Gradgrind, like Scrooge, ultimately reflects. Both shed rigid calculation, learning love and tolerance, becoming tender-hearted. Gradgrind's timely repentance adds comforting warmth to the novel. The novel stresses nurturing tenderness from childhood, cultivating character, as we say. Thus, in the ending, Louisa, now a mother, uses nursery rhymes with Sissy to enrich children's minds. The novel writes, "Without these, children's hearts wither. Grown up, they're like walking corpses." Ignoring innocence and tenderness, even if statistics show wealth, it's an omen of disaster. Bathed in this light, the story turns hopeful. Rigid Gradgrind reflects. Constrained Louisa escapes loveless marriage. Tom and Bounderby face deserved retribution. Starting with Gradgrind inspecting schools, ending with Louisa educating children, highlighting how early nurturing of love, imagination, and taste creates harmonious citizens. Overall, though critical of Britain, Dickens' writing is profoundly romantic. He urged using tolerance and kindness to combat selfishness and cruelty. But Dickens' romance wasn't just comfort. In his words, he pursued sacred justice through fiction. In his view, novels must influence social customs, and the justice portrayed in works should merge into reality. So after Hard Times, published in late 1854, Dickens left his study, traveling across cities to engage directly with the public. He attended grand reading events, drawing thousands. Dickens led audiences in emotional release, laughing, crying, and gesturing wildly with characters. People marveled. From reading Dickens to hearing his readings, sharing characters' journeys with him, our corroded souls find true purification. All right, that concludes our exploration of Dickens' Hard Times. Reading note to below the audio. See you tomorrow.